David, please pick up. The guy in the gray hoodie is following me again. I'm scared. 28-year-old Lydia Caldwell sent that text from a rain-soaked street corner in the industrial district, her breath coming out in white puffs in the February cold. Navy scrubs under a thrift store coat that did nothing against the wind. Sneakers soaked through. Phone battery at 4%. And behind her, 50 feet back but closing the distance, a man in a gray hoodie who'd been tailing her for 3 blocks. She'd just finished a double shift at Memorial General, 16 hours on her feet, 2 nurses called in sick, and she'd stayed because that's what Lydia did. She stayed. She helped. She pushed through exhaustion until her vision blurred and her hands shook when she tried to unlock her car. Except her car wouldn't start. Dead battery. Perfect. So she'd done what she always did when things fell apart. She texted David, her older brother, the one person who'd always picked up, always showed up, always had her back even when their parents couldn't. The text showed delivered. No response. She tried calling, straight to voicemail. Come on, David, please. Her fingers were numb as she typed again, faster now because the footsteps behind her were getting closer and she could hear them splashing through puddles, deliberate, unhurried, like whoever it was knew she had nowhere to run. The alley between 5th and 6th, he's getting closer. David, I need you. Delivered. 3 dots appeared, typing. Her heart lurched with relief. Then the dots disappeared, reappeared. Disappeared again. When the response finally came, it wasn't what she expected. I'm not David. Lydia's thumb hovered over the screen, confusion cutting through panic. Wrong number? She'd texted David's number, the same number she'd had saved for years, the one in her emergency contacts, under Big Brother. Another message came through before she could respond. But I can see him, the man in the gray hoodie. He's 40 feet behind you now, and you need to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. Ice flooded her veins. This stranger could see her. How? She spun around, searching the empty street, the dark windows of closed warehouses, looking for cameras, for someone, for any explanation that made sense. The man in the gray hoodie had stopped walking. He was staring directly at her now, close enough that she could see his face under the streetlight. Hollow eyes, no expression. He reached into his pocket. Her phone buzzed. Duck into the alley on your left, now. Lydia didn't think, didn't question. Terror makes you obey when obedience might mean survival. She broke into a run, her worn sneakers sliding on wet pavement as she veered left into the narrow alley between 2 brick buildings. Keep running, don't look back. Black SUV at the end of the alley. Get in. Who are you? She typed frantically, still running, her lungs burning. Someone who doesn't let innocent people die in my city. Move faster. He's following. She could hear him, heavy boots pounding pavement. Close. Too close. The alley opened into a loading dock area, and there, exactly as promised, sat a black Mercedes SUV with tinted windows and running lights on. The back door swung open. A man's voice from inside, tight with fear. Get in, now! Lydia threw herself into the back seat. The door slammed shut. Locks engaged with a heavy thunk. The SUV peeled out before she could even catch her breath. In the front seat, the driver, a Korean man in his 40s wearing a black suit, gripped the steering wheel like his life depended on it. His eyes kept flicking to the rearview mirror. Who are you? Lydia gasped. Where's David? Who was texting me? The driver didn't answer. Instead, a voice came through the car's speakers. Deep, calm, with a slight Korean accent that turned every word into a command. Miss Caldwell, my name is Byung-hae. Your brother gave you my number 3 years ago and told you it was his. He was supposed to erase it after he left my employment, but it seems he thought it might be useful insurance. He was right. I don't understand. Where's David? Why didn't he? Your brother changed his number 6 weeks ago. He has complications he's trying to avoid. Complications that have now found you instead. The SUV turned onto a main road, weaving through late-night traffic with precision. Lydia looked out the back window. No gray hoodie, no one following. Yet. "Who was that man?" she whispered. "An enforcer for a gang called the Vipers. They're looking for your brother. David owes them money, a significant amount. When they couldn't find him, they decided you'd make excellent leverage." Lydia's chest tightened. David? Gambling debts? This had to be wrong. David was studying architecture, working on his portfolio, planning to move to... The car phone voice interrupted her thoughts. "I'm taking you somewhere safe. We'll talk more when you arrive. Driver Kim will take care of you until then. Don't try to call anyone. Don't use your phone. And Miss Caldwell?" "Yes?" "Welcome to the part of your brother's life he never wanted you to see." The call ended. Silence filled the SUV except for the rhythmic thump-thump of windshield wipers fighting the rain. Lydia looked down at her phone, at the text thread that had saved her life. The contact name still read Big Brother, but underneath it now she noticed something she'd never seen before. A note in tiny gray letters, added years ago and forgotten. "Safe. Use in emergency only. Don't ask questions. B.H." Her hands started shaking, not from cold this time, from the realization that her brother, the person she trusted most in the world, had planted a stranger's number in her phone like a trap door she was never supposed to fall through. And now that she had, there was no climbing back out. But to understand how David could do this, how Lydia ended up running for her life at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, how her safe, predictable existence as a nurse could shatter in a single text message, we need to go back 6 weeks. Back to the last time Lydia saw her brother, and the conversation that should have warned her everything was about to change. 6 weeks earlier. Lydia sat in a booth at Murphy's Diner on Westheimer, picking at a stack of blueberry pancakes she didn't want, watching David scroll through his iPhone with that distant look he'd been wearing for months. "You're not eating," she'd said. "Not hungry." He didn't look up. "David!" "What?" "Talk to me, please. What's going on?" He'd finally looked at her then, and she'd seen something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Fear. Real, raw fear. "I'm handling it, Lyd, I promise. Just, if anyone asks about me, anyone you don't know, you tell them you haven't heard from me, okay?" "That's not ominous at all." "I'm serious." His hand had shot across the table, gripping her wrist. Too tight. "Promise me." She promised, because that's what she did. She trusted. She promised. She believed family would never hurt you. 3 days later, his number was disconnected. No forwarding information, no explanation. And Lydia did what she always did when people disappeared from her life. She made excuses, told herself he'd call when he was ready, convinced herself everything was fine. Until tonight, until the gray hoodie, until a stranger's voice through a speaker told her that fine was a lie she'd been telling herself to avoid seeing the truth. Before we continue, go ahead and subscribe, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. It truly means a lot to me seeing our storytelling community grow from Houston to Seoul, from late-night commutes to early morning coffee breaks. Every view, every share, every comment helps us bring these beautiful stories to life. Now settle in somewhere comfortable, because this is a story about what happens when the person you call for help turns out to be the most dangerous man in the city and the only one who can keep you alive. The SUV climbed. That was the first thing Lydia noticed as they left the industrial district behind, the steady, deliberate ascent through streets that grew cleaner, brighter, more expensive with every block. The warehouses gave way to mid-rise buildings, then to luxury high-rises with doormen and valet stands, the kind of buildings Lydia had only ever seen from the outside, walking past on her way to somewhere she could actually afford. Driver Kim hadn't spoken since they'd left the loading dock. His knuckles were still white on the steering wheel, his eyes still checking the mirrors every few seconds like he expected something to come screaming out of the darkness behind them. Whatever this Beyond Hye person was, his driver was terrified of disappointing him. Lydia pulled her coat tighter around herself, suddenly aware of how she must look. Soaked scrubs, wet hair falling out of its clip, the faint smell of hospital disinfectant and 16 hours of sweat clinging to her skin. She probably had coffee stains somewhere. She definitely had that bone-deep exhaustion that came from too many double shifts and not enough sleep. The SUV pulled into an underground garage beneath a building that looked like it cost more per floor than Lydia made in a year. Concrete pillars, perfect lighting, security cameras in every corner. Driver Kim swiped a card at the gate and it opened smoothly, silently, like money had made even the machinery polite. They parked in a spot marked "Reserved" near a private elevator with brushed steel doors. "Miss Caldwell," Driver Kim said, and his voice was gentler than she expected. "Please, this way." He opened her door and Lydia stepped out onto concrete so clean she could see her reflection in it. The elevator required another key card. Kim swiped it, pressed a button marked PH, and stepped back. "You're not coming?" Lydia's voice came out smaller than she intended. "Mr. Bian is waiting for you upstairs. He doesn't like to be kept waiting." The doors began to close. Lydia stuck her hand out to stop them, panic flaring. "Wait! I don't understand what's happening. I don't know who this person is. I just want to go home." Driver Kim looked at her with something that might have been pity. "Miss Caldwell, your apartment was broken into 40 minutes ago. The man in the gray hoodie. Mr. Bian has footage. You don't have a home to go back to tonight." The doors closed. The elevator rose so smoothly Lydia barely felt the movement, just the numbers climbing. 10, 20, 30. Her reflection stared back at her from the polished walls, and she looked exactly like what she was, a woman who'd stumbled into something she didn't understand and had no idea how to get out of. The penthouse. The doors opened. The first thing Lydia saw was windows, floor-to-ceiling glass that looked out over the entire city, a carpet of light stretching to the horizon. Rain streaked down the glass in rivulets, turning the view into something abstract and beautiful and completely unreal. The second thing she saw was the man standing with his back to her, hands clasped behind him, looking out at that view like he owned it. Bian Hye. He didn't turn around immediately, just stood there in a three-piece suit the color of charcoal, perfectly tailored, every line precise. His posture was military straight, shoulders back, and even from behind Lydia could see the power in the way he held himself. Not the bulk of a gym rat, but the lean, controlled strength of someone who'd been trained to hurt people efficiently. "Miss Caldwell." His voice sounded the same as from the car speakers, but richer in person, deeper. He still didn't turn around. "Your shoes. Please remove them." Lydia looked down at her soaked sneakers, leaving wet footprints on hardwood floors that probably cost more than her car. She towed them off, peeled off her socks. The floor was heated. Of course it was. "Come here." It wasn't a request. Lydia walked forward on bare feet, leaving a trail of water behind her. As she got closer, Hye finally turned and she got her first real look at him. He was younger than she'd expected, mid-30s maybe. High cheekbones that gave his face an aristocratic sharpness. Black hair swept back perfectly, not a strand out of place even at 2 a.m, and his eyes, dark, flat, assessing. The kind of eyes that looked at you and calculated your value in seconds. A thin scar cut through his left eyebrow, the only imperfection in an otherwise carefully maintained appearance. On his right hand, a heavy platinum ring caught the light. "Sit." He gestured to a leather chair near the window. Lydia sat. The chair was butter soft and probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. Hye moved to a bar cart, poured 2 fingers of amber liquid into a crystal glass and brought it to her. "Drink, you're shaking." She was. She hadn't noticed. She took the glass and the wine burned all the way down, but it did stop the shaking. Hye settled into the chair across from her, crossing one leg over the other with the kind of casual elegance that spoke of private schools and etiquette training. But his eyes never stopped moving, never stopped watching. "Your phone." he said, extending one hand. What? Your phone. Give it to me. I need my phone. I need to call... Who? Your brother who abandoned his number? Your mother who works night shifts at the packaging plant and can't help you? The police? His tone didn't change, but something cold flickered across his expression. Miss Caldwell, the man who followed you tonight works for people who pay off half the police force in this city. Your phone is a liability. It has GPS. It has contacts. It has everything someone needs to find you. So I'll ask once more. Your phone. Lydia's hand tightened around her iPhone, but she knew resistance was pointless. She handed it over. Hai removed the SIM card with practiced efficiency, dropped the phone into a drawer in the side table, and pocketed the card. You'll get a replacement tomorrow, a secure line. For now, you're unreachable. For how long? Until I determine you're not going to be murdered the moment you step outside. The bluntness of it hit Lydia like cold water. This is insane. I didn't do anything. I'm a nurse. I work at Memorial General. I don't know anything about gangs or debts or whatever my brother got himself into. Correct. You're innocent, which is precisely why you're still alive. Hai leaned forward slightly, and Lydia fought the urge to lean back. I have a code, Miss Caldwell. I don't harm civilians who haven't chosen this life, but the Vipers don't share that philosophy. To them, you're leverage, a tool, and they will use you to draw out your brother, extract what he owes, and dispose of you when you're no longer useful. Lydia felt the wine threatening to come back up. Why do you care? You don't know me. Your brother worked for me once, 3 years ago. He was competent, useful. Then he got greedy, skimmed money he shouldn't have touched, and disappeared before I could address the matter. Hai's expression didn't change, but his voice dropped half a degree. I don't forget debts, but I also don't punish family members for someone else's sins. David's mistakes are his own. You don't deserve to pay for them. So what am I supposed to do? Hide here forever? No. You stay here until I locate your brother and resolve the situation. Then you go back to your life. And if you don't find him? Hai stood, moved back to the window, hands clasped behind him again. Then we'll discuss alternative arrangements. The way he said it made Lydia's skin crawl. She stood too, exhaustion giving way to anger. I want to leave. No. You can't keep me here. I can and I will, for your own protection. This is kidnapping. Hai turned, and for the first time, something that might have been amusement crossed his face. Miss Caldwell, if I wanted to kidnap you, you wouldn't be drinking a French bloom in a guest chair. You'd be in a basement with zip ties. I'm offering you protection. There's a difference. Offering? You confiscated my phone. You won't let me leave. Because the moment you walk out that door, you're dead. His voice was still calm, factual. Your apartment was broken into an hour ago. They tore it apart looking for information on David's whereabouts. When they didn't find it, they planted cameras, listening devices. They're waiting for you to come home so they can take you. Do you understand? This isn't a hypothetical threat. This is happening right now. He picked up a tablet from the side table, tapped the screen a few times, and held it out to her. Lydia took it with trembling hands. The footage was black and white, time-stamped 47 minutes ago. Her apartment, her door being kicked in. 2 men, both wearing dark clothes and gloves, systematically destroying everything she owned. Drawers dumped, couch cushions slashed, her nursing textbooks thrown across the room, the small jewelry box her mother had given her, emptied and crushed under a boot. They moved through her space like they owned it, like her life was worth less than the 15 minutes it took them to tear it apart. One of them planted something behind her TV, another behind the smoke detector. Then they left. The footage ended. Lydia handed the tablet back because she didn't trust herself to keep holding it without throwing it. Her hands were shaking again. Her whole body was shaking. How did you... I have cameras in most buildings in this district. Your apartment complex is one of them. I saw them enter. I saw them leave. And I know that if you'd been there, you wouldn't have walked out. Lydia sank back into the chair. Her apartment, her books, her mother's jewelry box, everything she had destroyed by people looking for a brother she hadn't even spoken to in 6 weeks. "I need to call my mom," she whispered. "Tomorrow, on a secure line. Tonight, you need to sleep." "I can't sleep. I can't." Hai pressed a button on the wall, and a door Lydia hadn't noticed opened. A woman appeared, middle-aged, Korean, wearing a black dress and an expression of professional neutrality. "Mrs. Wong will show you to a guest room. There are clothes in the closet, toiletries in the bathroom, everything you need." "I don't want your clothes or your guest room. I want my life back." "Then we agree on something." Hai turned back to the window, dismissing her. "Because the faster I find your brother, the faster you can have it. Now go, rest. We'll talk more in the morning." Mrs. Wong gestured toward the hallway. Lydia wanted to argue, wanted to demand answers, wanted to do anything except obey, but exhaustion was winning. 16-hour shift, running for her life, everything she owned destroyed. She followed Mrs. Wong down a hallway lined with abstract art that probably cost more than Lydia's student loans, into a bedroom that was bigger than her entire apartment had been. King-sized bed, ensuite bathroom, a walk-in closet with clothes still tagged in her exact size. How did he know her size? Mrs. Wong bowed slightly. "If you need anything, press the button by the bed. I'll bring breakfast at 8. Then she was gone, and Lydia was alone. Lydia locked the door, not that it mattered. If Hai wanted in, a lock wouldn't stop him. She stood under a shower so hot it turned her skin pink, washing away 16 hours of hospital and fear and the feeling of strange men's hands on her apartment door. The toiletries were expensive, the towels were soft, everything was perfect and sterile and wrong. When she finally climbed into the bed, wrapped in a bathrobe that cost more than her coat, she expected to lie awake for hours. She was asleep in minutes. Lydia woke to sun streaming through blackout curtains someone had opened while she slept. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then it all came flooding back, the chase, the text, the penthouse, her apartment in ruins. She sat up, and her body immediately reminded her that sleeping in a luxury bed didn't erase 16 hours on her feet. Everything hurt. There was a knock on the door. "Yes?" Mrs. Wong entered with a tray. Coffee, fruit, toast, eggs cooked perfectly. "Mr. Bion would like to see you when you're ready. He's in his office." "Where's his office?" "Down the hall, second door to the left, the open one." Lydia ate mechanically, showered again because she could, and dressed in clothes from the closet. Black jeans that fit perfectly, a soft gray sweater, even the shoes fit. Everything fit, and that should have been comforting, but instead felt like evidence of how much Hai knew about her that she hadn't told him. She found the office. The door was open, just as Mrs. Wong had said. Hai sat behind a desk of dark wood and glass, reading something on a computer screen. He'd changed into a midnight blue suit, and in the morning light, you could see the edge of a tattoo peeking out from under his collar, black lines, intricate, something that looked like scales or waves. He looked up when she entered. "You slept." "How do you know?" "Because the cameras in your room show you didn't move for 6 hours. Lydia's blood went cold. "You have cameras in the guest room?" "I have cameras everywhere. Security, Miss Caldwell, not surveillance. There's a difference." She gestured to a chair. "Sit. We need to discuss your situation." Lydia sat because standing felt like defiance she didn't have the energy for yet. "Have you found David?" "No, but I found his last known location, a gambling house in Chinatown. He was there 3 nights ago, lost $40,000 in a single evening." 40,000. Lydia felt the number like a punch. "David doesn't have $40,000. "No, he borrowed it from the Vipers. Against his word, he'd pay it back within a week. He didn't, so they came looking for collateral. They found you." "This doesn't make sense. David was studying architecture. He was going to grad school. He doesn't gamble." "People change. Addiction makes them change faster." Hai pulled up something on his screen, turned it to face her. "This is your brother 4 months ago." The photo showed David sitting at a poker table, surrounded by chips and cards and men who looked like they'd kill for the price of a hand. He looked thin, desperate, nothing like the brother Lydia remembered. Where did you get this? I have access to many things. Hai closed the laptop. Your brother has been gambling for over a year. He's in debt to at least 3 organizations. The Vipers are simply the most aggressive in their collection methods. Lydia's throat tightened. Why didn't he tell me? Why didn't he ask for help? Because you're a nurse who works doubles to afford a 1-bedroom apartment in a bad neighborhood. What help could you offer him? Shame keeps people quiet, Miss Caldwell. Shame and fear. So what happens now? Now you stay here while I locate him. I have people searching. It's only a matter of time. And when you find him? That depends on whether he's still breathing when I do. Hai stood, straightened his cuffs. I have business to attend to. You're free to move around the penthouse. Mrs. Wong will bring you meals. Don't try to leave. The elevator requires a key card you don't have. So I'm a prisoner? You're a guest. There's a difference. Not from where I'm sitting. Something that might have been respect flickered in Hai's eyes. Most people don't talk back to me. Most people aren't being held against their will. True. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Miss Caldwell, I do intend to keep you safe. That's not a negotiation or a threat. It's simply what I've decided. So please, try not to make it more difficult than necessary. Then he was gone, and Lydia was alone in an office that smelled like expensive cologne and leather. She spent the day exploring the penthouse like a prisoner exploring a cell. It was massive, 5 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a restaurant, a library with books in Korean and English, a gym, a room that was just windows and plants. Everything was perfect. Everything was controlled. Everything was a cage. Mrs. Wong brought lunch, dinner, smiled politely, and answered no questions about when Lydia could leave. By the time the sun set, Lydia was ready to climb the walls. She was standing at the living room window, watching the city lights flicker to life when she heard the elevator ding. Hai was back. But something was wrong. She could hear it in the way he moved. Too slow, too careful. Lydia walked to the hallway and stopped. Hai was leaning against the wall, one hand pressed to his side. His midnight blue suit was torn at the shoulder. Dark stains spread across his white shirt. Blood. His face was still perfectly calm, but his breathing was shallow. "Mr. Bai." "I'm fine." He pushed off the wall, took 2 steps, and stumbled. Lydia's training kicked in before her fear could stop her. She crossed the distance between them, caught his arm before he could fall. He was heavier than he looked, all muscle and controlled violence, but she managed to steady him. "You're bleeding." "It's nothing. You need to sit down before you pass out and crack your skull on this very expensive floor." She guided him to the couch, and he went, which told her exactly how badly he was hurt. A man like Hai didn't accept help unless he had no choice. She unbuttoned his jacket, peeled it off. The white shirt underneath was soaked red on the left side. "What happened?" "Territorial dispute. A rival organization thought they could take one of my warehouses. They were wrong." "You got shot." "Stabbed. Not the same thing." Lydia lifted his shirt and her breath caught. A deep laceration across his ribs, still bleeding, the edges ragged. Whoever had done this meant to kill him. "You need a hospital." "No hospitals. They ask questions." "You need stitches." "Then stitch me." His eyes fixed on hers, calm despite the blood. "You're a nurse. This is what you do." Lydia's hands were already moving, already assessing the damage, years of training overriding the fear. "I need supplies, antiseptic, sterile thread, bandages." "Mrs. Wong." The woman appeared like she'd been waiting just out of sight, probably had been. "Medical supplies," Hai said. "Bring everything." Mrs. Wong left and returned in under 2 minutes with a tackle box full of surgical equipment that no normal household should have. Lydia cleaned the wound with hands that barely shook. The knife had cut deep, but missed anything vital. Lucky. She threaded the curved needle, and Hai watched her work with the kind of detached interest most people reserved for watching television. "You're not going to ask me to numb it first?" she said. "Would you?" "No. I don't have the right supplies for local anesthetic, and you're probably on enough adrenaline that you won't feel it much anyway. Then proceed. She did. The first suture went in clean. Hai didn't flinch, didn't make a sound, just kept watching her with those flat, assessing eyes. "Your brother worked for me as a courier," he said suddenly. Lydia's hands paused. "What?" "3 years ago, he delivered packages, money mostly, sometimes documents. He was good at it, reliable, until he wasn't. You're telling me this now? You're stitching me back together. It seems an appropriate time for honesty." Another suture. Still no reaction from him. "He stole from me, 50,000 from a delivery. Thought I wouldn't notice. I did. I always do." "Why didn't you kill him?" "Because he had a sister who just lost both parents in a car accident, a sister who was putting herself through nursing school while working nights at a diner, a sister who would have been destroyed if her only family disappeared." His eyes never left her face. "I have a code, Miss Caldwell. I don't punish the innocent." Lydia tied off another suture. Her hands were steady now, muscle memory taking over. "So you let him go?" "I told him to disappear, change his number, stay out of my territory. He did, for a while. Then the gambling started, and now he's in debt to people who don't share my restraint." "The Vipers?" "Among others." She finished the last suture, cleaned the wound again, bandaged it with practiced efficiency. When she was done, she sat back and finally let herself look at him, really look at him. Blood on his chest, tattoos peeking out from under the bandages, the scar through his eyebrow, the platinum ring on his finger. He was exactly what he appeared to be, a criminal, a killer, someone who lived in violence and called it business. And he'd saved her life. "Why did you answer my text?" The question came out quieter than she intended. Hai buttoned his shirt over the bandages, slow and deliberate. "Because when I saw the panic in your message, I remembered what it felt like to be powerless, and I decided I wouldn't let someone else feel that way if I could prevent it." "You don't seem like someone who was ever powerless." "Everyone starts somewhere, Miss Caldwell. Even monsters." He stood, testing his weight. The bandages held. "Thank you for the medical attention. It's what I do." "Yes, it is." He looked at her for a long moment, and something shifted in his expression. Not softness exactly, but acknowledgement. "Your brother worked for me as a courier. You'll stay here until this is resolved. No arguments, no escape attempts. In exchange, I'll make sure you have everything you need." "I don't want things. I want my life back." "Then we agree on our goal." He turned toward his bedroom, then paused. "Your brother gave me your number for a reason, Lydia. He knew that if something went wrong, I'd protect you. Even after everything he did, he trusted me with your safety. Perhaps you should trust him one last time." Then he was gone, leaving Lydia alone in a living room that smelled of antiseptic and blood, with a tackle box full of surgical supplies and the growing realization that her life had changed in ways she couldn't begin to understand. She cleaned up the medical supplies with hands that had finally started to shake. The adrenaline was wearing off. The reality was setting in. She'd just stitched up a Korean mafia boss in a penthouse prison while her brother hid from debts he'd never mentioned, and men destroyed everything she owned. And the worst part, the part that terrified her most, was that for the first time in 6 weeks, since David had disappeared and left her alone, she didn't feel abandoned. She felt protected. And that was more dangerous than any knife wound. 3 days passed in the penthouse. 3 days of expensive meals Lydia barely tasted, of staring out floor-to-ceiling windows at a city that felt more distant every hour, of waiting for news that never came. Hai left early each morning, returned late each night, always in a different suit, always with that same unreadable expression. He was hunting David. Lydia knew it without asking. On the fourth morning, she was drinking coffee in the kitchen when Hai appeared in the doorway, already dressed in a charcoal three-piece that made him look like he was going to a board meeting instead of into whatever violence filled his days. "Get dressed," he said. "We're leaving in 20 minutes." Lydia set down her mug. "Where?" "To find your brother. I have a lead. A gambling den in Chinatown where he was seen 2 nights ago. We're going to confirm it." "You want me to come with you?" "If he sees me alone, he'll run. If he sees you, he might stay long enough to talk." Hai's expression didn't change. "And I suspect you want answers he's not going to give me." Lydia was dressed in 15 minutes, black jeans, the gray sweater, shoes that fit too well. When she emerged, Hai was waiting by the elevator with driver Kim, who looked even more nervous than usual. The ride down was silent. The SUV was waiting in the garage, and this time Kim drove with the kind of precision that spoke of knowing exactly where they were going and wanting to get there without incident. Chinatown at 11 in the morning was a different world from the industrial district at 2 a.m. Crowded sidewalks, vendors shouting prices, the smell of street food and exhaust mixing in the cold air. The SUV navigated through narrow streets until it stopped in front of a building that looked like any other. Red door, faded sign in Chinese characters, windows covered with paper. "Stay close," Hai said as they exited the vehicle. "Don't speak unless I tell you to. And if I tell you to run, you run. Understood?" Lydia nodded. Hai knocked on the red door in a pattern. Too fast, one slow, too fast again. A slot opened. Eyes appeared. Then the door swung wide. Inside was noise and the particular tension that came from men betting money they didn't have. Card tables, mahjong, dice games. The lighting was dim, the air thick with cigarette smoke and desperation. Men in suits and men in street clothes, all focused on their games with the intensity of addiction. When Hai walked in, the noise didn't stop, but it changed. Conversations became quieter. Eyes tracked him across the room. The man running the nearest card table stood up so fast his chair fell over. "Mr. Bayan," his voice cracked slightly. "We didn't know you were. We would have prepared." "I'm not here for inspection." Hai's voice cut through the smoke like a blade. "I'm looking for someone. David Caldwell, Korean American, late 20s, gambling problem. He was here 2 nights ago." The man's eyes flicked to Lydia, then back to Hai. "I don't know that name, Mr. Bayan. I swear I don't." Hai took one step forward, just one. The man stumbled backward like he'd been shoved. "Let me be clearer. David Caldwell owes money to the Vipers. The Vipers are encroaching on my territory. I don't like encroachment. So when I ask where David Caldwell is, I'm not making conversation. I'm giving you an opportunity to be helpful." "Back room," the words tumbled out fast. "He's in the back room. High stakes game. Been there since last night." "Show me." The man led them through the main floor, past tables where players pretended not to watch, through a door into a hallway that smelled like old beer and newer fear. Another door at the end. No windows, no noise from inside. Hai pushed it open. The room was smaller than the main floor. 1 table, 4 players, chips stacked high, and there, hunched over his cards with the hollow-eyed look of someone who'd been awake for 30 hours straight, was David. He looked terrible, thinner than Lydia remembered, his clothes rumpled, a shadow of beard on his jaw. When he looked up and saw her standing in the doorway, his face went through a dozen expressions in as many seconds: surprise, fear, guilt, calculation. "Lydia?" Her name came out like a question he wasn't sure he wanted answered. "Hello, David." Hai stepped into the room and the other 3 players immediately stood and left without a word. Smart men. "We need to talk." David's eyes locked on Hai and the color drained from his face. "Mr. Bayan, I can explain. I'm sure you can, but first, your sister has questions." Lydia moved forward on legs that felt disconnected from her body. 6 weeks since she'd last seen David sober and smiling, promising her he was doing better, that architecture school was going well, that everything was fine. How many lies had she believed because she'd wanted them to be true? "Why didn't you tell me?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Why didn't you tell me about the gambling, the debts, any of it?" David laughed, but it was hollow. "Tell you what, Lyd, that I'm a failure, that I dropped out of school, that I'm in debt to people who break legs for fun? What was I supposed to say?" "The truth. You were supposed to tell me the truth." "The truth is, I'm a screw-up, and you're the golden child who does everything right, works her doubles, saves her money, helps everyone. How was I supposed to compete with that?" The words hit like a slap. "Compete? David, I'm your sister. We're not competing." "Aren't we?" He stood up, swaying slightly. "Mom and Dad always loved you more. You were the smart one, the responsible one. I was just the disappointment waiting to happen." "Mom and Dad are gone," Lydia's voice cracked, "and you're all I have left. Or you were, until you disappeared and put me in danger because you were too proud to ask for help." Something shifted in David's expression. Guilt, maybe? Or calculation? Lydia couldn't tell anymore. "I know about the Vipers," Lydia continued. "I know they came looking for me. I know they destroyed my apartment. I know you sold your sister's location to clear your debts." The room went very quiet. David's eyes darted to Hai, then back to Lydia. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to her." Hai's voice was soft, which somehow made it more terrifying. "I have phone records, text messages. You gave the Vipers her address 3 days ago. In exchange, they forgave 20,000 of your debt. Did you tell her that part?" Lydia felt the floor tilt. "David, tell me he's lying." Her brother's face crumpled, not with remorse, with the self-pity of someone caught in a lie they'd told themselves was justified. "They were going to kill me, Lyd. What was I supposed to do? You weren't even supposed to get hurt. They just wanted to use you to get to me, to force me to work off the debt. You would have been fine." "Fine?" The word came out as a whisper. "They were going to kidnap me, use me as leverage, and you thought I'd be fine?" Something inside Lydia broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet snap, like a thread pulled too tight finally giving way. "Get away from me." "David, I don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You sold me out to save yourself. That's all I need to understand." David's expression hardened. "You think you're better than me, standing there with your self-righteousness? You're sleeping in a crime lord's penthouse, Lyd. You're the one compromising now, not me." Before Lydia could respond, the door behind them opened. A man stepped in, tall, scarred, wearing the kind of leather jacket that screamed enforcer. Behind him, 2 more. Vipers. Hai moved in front of Lydia so fast she barely saw him shift. His hand went inside his jacket, and when it came out, it held a gun that looked casual in his grip, like it was just another part of his anatomy. "Gentlemen," his voice didn't change, "you're in my territory. Leave." The scarred man smiled. "We're just here for what's ours. David Caldwell owes us money, and since he's standing right there, we figured we'd collect." "No." "No?" The smile widened. "You're protecting him now? I thought you wanted him dead too." "I do, but he's mine to kill, not yours." Hai's gun never wavered. "And the woman is off limits. She's under my protection." "Funny thing about that." The scarred man pulled out his phone, showed Hai the screen. "We just got a call from David here, told us exactly where to find him and where to find his sister. Seems he's more interested in clearing his debt than family loyalty." Lydia's blood turned to ice. She looked at David, and he wouldn't meet her eyes. "You called them." The words barely made it out. "You brought them here to trade me." "They said they'd clear everything," David whispered. "All of it. I'd be free. And I'd be dead. You'd be with them for a while, that's all, just until I got back on my feet. High's finger moved to the trigger. David, walk behind me, slowly. Don't make me regret protecting you for even 1 second. But David didn't move toward them. He moved toward the Vipers. I'm sorry, Lyd, I really am, but I can't keep drowning, and you're the only thing I have left to trade. The scarred man's hand shot out, grabbed David's shoulder. Smart choice. Now, Mr. Beyond, you can keep the girl safe all you want, but she's coming with us one way or another. So you can hand her over peacefully, or we can make this messy. Your choice. I choose messy. High's voice was flat. Driver Kim, get her out, now. Kim appeared in the doorway. Lydia hadn't even seen him enter and grabbed her arm. She struggled, watching David disappear behind the Vipers, watching her brother choose strangers over family, watching everything she thought she knew about him dissolve into a truth she should have seen coming. David! She screamed his name, but he didn't turn around. Kim pulled her into the hallway as the first gunshot rang out behind them. The ride back to the penthouse was a blur of speed and fear, and driver Kim muttering prayers in Korean under his breath. They made it to the garage, into the elevator, up to the penthouse, and Kim immediately started making calls in rapid-fire Korean, his voice tight with panic. What's happening? Lydia grabbed his arm. Where's High? He'll be here. He always makes it out. But Kim didn't sound convinced. Lydia paced the living room, her mind replaying David's face as he'd chosen the Vipers, as he'd traded her freedom for his debt, as he'd proven that blood didn't mean loyalty. 30 minutes later, the elevator dinged. High stepped out. His suit was torn, blood on his knuckles, a cut above his eye, but he was walking, and that was something. You're alive, Lydia breathed. Disappointed? He moved to the bar cart, poured wine with hands that were remarkably steady given the circumstances. What happened to David? The Vipers took him. I killed 2 of them, but the rest got away with your brother. He made his choice. High downed the wine in one swallow. I'm sorry you had to see that. I needed to see it. I needed to know. Lydia sank onto the couch. He really did it. He really sold me out. Yes. And you saved me anyway. I told you, I have a code. High poured another drink, this time bringing it to her. What happens now? Now the Vipers know you're with me, which means this penthouse is no longer safe. They'll come, maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow, but they'll come. As if summoned by his words, every light in the penthouse went out. The city disappeared. The windows went black. Even the emergency lighting failed. High was moving before Lydia could scream. His hand found hers in the darkness, pulled her down behind the couch. His voice was right against her ear, barely a whisper. They're here. Stay down, stay quiet. Don't move until I tell you to. What? They've cut the power. It's a siege tactic. They'll come up the elevator shaft or the stairwell. I need to stop them before they reach this floor. You can't fight them in the dark. I own the dark, Lydia. They're just visiting. He pressed something cold and metal in her hand, a phone. If I don't come back in 10 minutes, you call the number labeled Exodus. Tell them the dragon is down. They'll extract you. I'm not leaving you. You will if I'm dead. Promise me. Before she could answer, she heard it. The elevator doors being pried open, voices in the shaft, footsteps on concrete. High kissed her forehead once, quick and unexpected. Then he was gone, melting into the darkness like he'd been born to it. Lydia crouched behind the couch, phone clutched in one hand, and listened to her penthouse prison become a war zone. The first gunshot was so loud she bit her tongue to keep from screaming. Then another and another. Shouts in the darkness, the wet sound of something hitting flesh, a body falling. More gunshots, closer now, breaking glass, something heavy crashing to the floor. Then silence. Lydia counted her heartbeats. 10, 20, 30. The emergency lights flickered on, dim and red. In their glow, she saw him, high, standing in the hallway, covered in blood. Some his, most not. His suit was destroyed, his knuckles raw, and in his hand the gun that had saved her life twice now. Behind him, bodies, 4 of them, vipers who'd thought they could take down the dragon in his own territory. But there was someone else, still standing, still armed, the scarred man from the gambling den, and he had his gun pointed directly at High's back. "Look out!" Lydia screamed. High spun, but not fast enough. The scarred man fired. The bullet caught High in the shoulder, spinning him around. He dropped his gun, fell to one knee. The scarred man smiled. "Not so untouchable now, are you?" He raised his gun again, aiming for High's head. Lydia didn't think. She ran, grabbed the nearest heavy object, a marble sculpture from the side table, and threw it with every ounce of strength her nursing exhausted arms could muster. It hit the scarred man in the temple. He stumbled. His shot went wide. High lunged forward despite his wound, and what happened next was brutal and efficient and over in seconds. He grabbed the scarred man's gun hand, twisted until bones snapped. The scarred man thrashed, clawed, tried to fight. High was relentless, cold. His face showed nothing as he crushed the life out of someone who'd threatened what was his. When the body finally went limp, High dropped it and turned to Lydia. His shoulder was a mess, but his eyes were clear. "Thank you," he said simply. Then he collapsed. Lydia was on him in an instant, her training overriding her terror. Shoulder wound, through and through. Bullet had passed clean, but had hit an artery. He was bleeding out fast. "Mrs. Wong!" Lydia screamed. "Medical supplies, now!" The woman appeared with the tackle box, her face pale but composed. Lydia's hands moved on autopilot, pressure, clamps, threading a needle with fingers slick with High's wound. "You're not dying," she told him fiercely. "Not after everything. You don't get to die." "Wasn't planning on it." His voice was weak but steady. "I'm harder to kill than that." She worked in the red emergency lighting, stitching an artery back together, while High watched her with those calm, assessing eyes that didn't blink even when the needle went deep. When she finished, when the bleeding finally stopped, when his pulse steadied under her fingers, she sat back against the wall and let herself shake. High's hand found hers, squeezed once. "You saved my life," he said. "I saved mine first. Then we're even. We're not even close to even." His cleanup crew arrived 20 minutes later, men in suits who moved the bodies with the efficiency of practice, who repaired the elevator, who had the power back on in under an hour. They treated Lydia like she was glass, like she belonged there, like she was someone important. High was moved to his bedroom. A doctor arrived, a real one, checked Lydia's stitching and declared it adequate. The doctor gave High something for the pain, but High refused to take it until Lydia promised she'd stay. She stayed. She sat in the chair beside his bed while he slept off the adrenaline and blood loss, and she thought about David, about choice, about loyalty, about the difference between family you're born with and family you choose. When Hugh woke up the next morning, sunlight was streaming through his bedroom windows, and Lydia was still there. "You didn't leave," he said. "Where would I go? My apartment's destroyed. My brother sold me out, and apparently I've become complicit in a gang war." She smiled, but it was tired. "Besides, someone has to make sure you don't rip your stitches." Hugh sat up slowly, testing his shoulder. The bandages held. "I have something for you." He reached into his bedside drawer, the one that didn't have guns in it, and pulled out an envelope. Inside was a plane ticket, first class, to Seattle, dated for tomorrow. "What is this?" "Your exit. New city, new start. I have contacts there who can set you up with a job, an apartment, a new identity if you need it. You can walk away from all of this, from me, from what your brother did. You can have your life back." Lydia looked at the ticket, at the freedom it represented, at a clean break from violence and a man who killed people in his own hallway. Then she tore it in half. "I don't want to run," she said quietly. I spent my whole life being the responsible one, the good one, taking care of everyone else while I disappeared into the background. David threw me away because it was easier than facing his problems. But you, she met Hugh's eyes, you could have ignored my text, could have let me die, could have done what everyone else does and chosen the easy path, but you didn't. Lydia, I'm not finished. You're a criminal. You run an organization that does terrible things to bad people. I know that. I'm not naive enough to pretend otherwise. She took a breath. But you also have a code, and you kept it even when it would have been easier not to. You protected me when you didn't have to. And I'm tired of living in a world where the people who are supposed to care about me are the ones who hurt me most. She pulled out the phone Hugh had given her during the siege, opened her contacts, found the number saved under Big Brother, David. She deleted it. Then she found Hugh's number, the one that saved her life, the one she'd texted by accident and by fate. She saved it under a new name, Home. I'm staying, she said, if you'll have me. Not as a prisoner, not as someone you're protecting out of obligation, but as someone who chooses to be here. Hugh looked at her for a long moment. Then something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. Mrs. Wong, Hugh called. The woman appeared in the doorway like she'd been waiting.